Good morning and welcome to the Saturday special of Dr.Lamba's Awakening Call. All philosophy, especially the ancient philosophy, is in fact a panacea for all the stress because the philosophers in that era were more concerned with giving peace of mind. The religiosity, the ritualistic aspect of that culture of that time was such. And then the uncertainty. People were nomadic. They had homes all right. But still the settled society had not taken place. And while most of the people are aware that the Indian philosophy and the Chinese philosophy are very, very attuned towards soothing human mind, most of the people have misconceptions about Hellenic philosophy. Hellenic is Greek philosophy. And in fact, I have seen that Greek philosophy and wisdom is in fact a balm for the frayed nerves, whether it is sophists or whether it is Stoics. You would, after studying them, find that if you have a disturbed state of mind, that philosophy is so calming and soothing you can't imagine. The Stoic philosophy especially is such. It was, I think, about 7 years back, and I was at an international conference, and a very cultured, decent-looking gentleman asked me to which country and religion I belonged. I told him that I was a global citizen who did not believe in any organized religion. Really, the guy was shocked. And he was a highly capable, intelligent man. My impression is, and it was confirmed when I overheard him talking to another gentleman about me, that this person was haughtily superstitious person. My candid reply was mistaken for a discourteous reply. But the same reply, if it was possibly given by Socrates, and today when we read Socrates, it sounds to be perfectly logical and most sublime statement. Socrates had proclaimed centuries back that he was a global citizen. And that fact that if you are a citizen of the world, as the newspaper described me when they interviewed me when I shifted to Innisfail, a citizen of the world, then all these worries about the wars, aggression would not be there because each one would be happily living wherever they are. So, in the time of war especially, if everybody starts thinking that he or she is a citizen of the world, and that's a Hellenic philosophy. As a matter of fact, it is not Hellenic, even Indian philosophy. When Krishna talks of the whole world being your family, it's the same thing. Then Diogenes, the most eccentric of all gymnosophists. Gymno means naked, bare, and sophist means philosopher, thinking. So we call him gymnosophists because they are absolutely frank, brutally frank, and they are philosophers and thinkers. And he declared that religion, region, color, and all that jazz are mere accidents of birth. So which religion you belong to is because you happen to be born in that family. You are a citizen of a country or a region because you happen to be born at that place at that time. I was born in that place, which today is Pakistan. Had been born about 4 years later, 5 years later, I would have been a Pakistani by birth. And maybe the Indian government would never have given me a visa. I've given me visa every time after a lot of trouble. But since At that time it was India. So it's an accident of birth. And that's the Greek philosophy, that you have got to be citizen of the world and thinking about it. Now this is a kind of nous. Nous is a Greek word for knowledge and wisdom. And that is in fact useful for the beleaguered mankind, troubled mankind, which needs it, that you need knowledge, you need wisdom. But before talking about the philosophy of the Greek sophists, it must be noted that the canon of Greek philosophy was pragmatism and practicability of everyday existence. Now here Greek philosophy differs from the Indian philosophy. While Indian philosophy by and large is practical, but there is a great part of the Indian philosophy which deals with your soul, with salvation, moksha they call it. Greek philosophy is absolutely practical, down to the earth. And that's why Greeks were the first civilization in the world to extend its breadth all over. The Indian philosophy remained contained in Indian peninsula. Chinese in the Chinese mainland. Incas only in Latin America. But then Greek philosophy was able to percolate. And now this is amazing, that although it has elements which were expounded in Indian philosophy, Chinese philosophy, Inca philosophy, Egyptian philosophy, much before Greeks thought of it, but still those ideas are given, are credited to the Greek philosophy. And if you remember, I had talked about Bhagavad Gita and Stoicism, and how I showed that Stoicism is 90% Bhagavad Gita. So the Vedantic philosophy, but then the way they presented it in a manner to make it appear everyday existence. The problem with the Eastern philosophy, Oriental philosophy, whether it's Indian, whether it's Chinese, whether it's Japanese, is that the philosophers of the East were mostly lotus eaters. They were not bothered about day-to-day existence. So they propounded recondite theories about heaven and religion. Greek philosophers were everyday existentialists. And I love this writing by Reginald Allen in Greek philosophy. He says that whether it was Zeno, Stoicism, or Diogenes, cynicism, human life in all its glory and gory bloodshed finds a meaning in Greek everyday philosophy. So this is something which is exceptional in Greek, and no other philosophy has that part of reality. Now Diogenes' famous search for an honest man was a way of exposing the hypocrisy, the sham, the cant, and the duplicity of polite societal convention. By holding a literal light, he kindled fire and made people jump and exposed them in the broad daylight. He forced them to recognize their participation in practices, and those practices prevented them from living truthfully. He inspired others to follow his example. The famed interpreted philosopher had the guts to tell Alexander the Great. You know the story. Alexander the Great approached him and said, "What can I do for you?" He said, "Get out of here. Let me have the sunlight. You are obstructing the sunlight from coming to me." So that sort of a thing, that a common man doesn't need a king to help him. So, if you study the humanistic nature of Greek philosophy and everyday exemplary manifestations of Greek thinkers, they provided solutions to the life's existential issues. Now, just think of Aristotle two magnificently life transforming statements. First statement which I love is, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And the second is, it's mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. So the difference between destructive and devastating times, the gem of Aristotle assumes a great significance. And if human beings imbibe this spirit of, quote, much bloodshed, and bad blood can be avoided. Because start knowing self-awareness. As a matter of fact, as I told you, the same were expounded in Gita, but Gita was just a part of that philosophy. Indian philosophy is so composite. Vedas, Purans, Shastras, Mimamsas, and it's so widespread. And even Gita is covered partly by the religiosity. So that religiosity aspect is missing in Greek. They were absolutely secular in the sense that they thought philosophy and the human life might be impacted by religion, but religion per se is not a part of the human life. So you could keep on thinking about Plato saying, only dead have seen the end of war. Now, how pertinent it is. As long as you are living, you are fighting if you are in war, and in life also. But now, this reminds me of that old saying in Punjabi. They call it, when a person dies, they call him Pura ho gaya, he's completed. So he has seen the end of the war. So that daily occurrence in the Punjabi proverb and the statement, and the Greek philosophy shows that death is the end of all. Now this, if that thing is adopted, you would say, okay, what's this life worth living for? And then Plato says, we can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light of knowledge. Now when the philosophy talks of abstruse things, then people are afraid. But if they want to lay bare the facts of life, people are afraid. And the next one, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle. This is what I have been saying, compassion, empathy. And that was basically from the Greek philosophy. Now, here it differs from Gita as well. For example, in Gita says, do your job immaterial of cause the suffering you cause. They say, no, be kind. Even when you are killing somebody, be kind. And that's what's more important. Now, all these aphorisms from Hellenic wisdom can be seen as a balm for the frayed, disturbed mind. Human civilization is a battered civilization. Human life, for all this saying of all these leaders is great and everything, is full of conflict. And it is what Tennyson says, nature red in tooth and claw. It eats human beings. The society, nature he means society. Claws are full of blood, human blood. So, this benighted human civilization can get peace from the Greek philosophy. Greek philosophy is an antidote for a civilizational crisis. Now, here again it differs from the individual to the societal. The Oriental philosophy, the Indian philosophy, the Chinese philosophy are concerned with the soul of a man, with an individual. The Greek philosophy is not concerned with the individual, it's concerned with the society per se. So the tangibility and the accessibility of the Greek philosophy endears it to those who think and act upon what they thought, and they ruminate. It's not only thinking, you've got to keep on thinking, rethinking. And the hallmark of philosophy of Greek wisdom is simplicity. It's not abstruse, it's not in a very, very confusing manner. Most of the philosophers are so confusing that you don't want even to read it. But you read Stoics, you read Sophists, you read Zion, you read Aristotle. Simple, direct, easily comprehensible, understandable, and excellent communication. So all that encapsulated, the real philosophy, the real thought, the Balm, comes in a package which is easily accessible, understandable, comprehensible, and applicable. So this simplicity of those messages make an impact on the human mind. And the disturbed human mind at that time then feels, well, this is really what life is. If that is there, then Greek philosophy is at the mundane level, at the human level, at everyday level, the real panacea for the troubles of human mind. While Oriental philosophy would be great for your moksha and spiritual salvation. Thank you.